we need to talk more about outcome. The business want to know what is the outcome of this platform that they pay for, because now they also see the cost of that platform.
So when you say a GreenLake Flex solution, there are two parts to it. One is GreenLake, which is the control plane which Christoph talked about, a unified control plane which comes with its artifacts of consumption analytics, hybrid observability, and wellness dashboard, sustainability insight center, and stuff like that. Flex solution leverages the artifacts of the capabilities of GreenLake platform.
With managed services, we complete the journey by providing managed for you experience, right? Which is like a cloud-like operating model across edge to cloud. And customers, those who have experienced cloud, right? They have a certain way of managing services, which is lightweight because cloud provider used to do those heavy lifting for them.
Welcome everyone. Today we'll explore how CIOs can navigate increasing complexity in infrastructure decisions, especially in the age of AI, hybrid cloud, and rising cost pressures. I'm joined by Christoph, Nusrat, and Mani. Let me start with you, Christoph. What's fundamentally changed in how infrastructure decisions are made today?
Well, I think the decisions are a little bit different than in the past. In the past, it was really about technology and pricing. But I think today, things are moving into the dimension of control. People need to have a lot of things to control, many more things actually to control. And the reason for that is AI is actually driving the data gravity to be essential into the way people are going to operate, right? So that's the first one. The second thing that they have is also environments are quite distributed. We see a lot of edge to cloud discussion, and the hybrid cloud is becoming the new format that everybody is actually embracing for their operation. The other thing that is important is, since all this data are actually distributed, the sovereignty and the management and the control of this data is also quite important for the decision maker. And so for CIO need to find a way to not only treat sovereignty today, but also for the future of their enterprise. The last two are basically, first, people are trying to make sure that they don't go into a kind of technical lock-in. We have seen actually the world changing quite frequently in the past years, right? And I think customers want to have agility now for their future. One of the reasons for that is because also the customers are also facing, because of this technical lock-in that they had in the past, they are also facing a problem around pricing, a problem around cost of operation. And so the link between the technical lock-in and the predictability of their budget for the future is also becoming more and more important. So that's the type of disruption that people want to basically control. Yeah. So I would say that, yes, a shift from technical, I would say, focus to a more control and management focus on many different factors.
Right.
Yeah.
But with all of these shifts, right, which of these is the most acute pressure point now?
Well, I think that the one which is making the highest level of pressure is, of course, AI.
Mm-hmm.
AI is actually changing a lot of different parameters into the way we were operating. In the past, we were having the data actually centralized and the workload also very close to the data. Today, the fragmentation of the data is a reality. So people are really going edge to cloud. So the workload need to be also distributed much more than before. And they need to be also operated on a uniform way into all these different environments. So that's the big change that actually AI is actually giving. Is actually giving a change like you don't put your data for training at the same location as you are going to put your data for inferencing, for example, right? So these are really new parameter and new, I would say, frequency of change that the customer will have to deal with. Yeah.
Okay, Mani, we've heard for years about the cloud-first strategy, right? Are we now seeing a correction?
It's absolutely yes, right? What we see is a strategic shift in the enterprise IT strategy itself, right? What used to be cloud first is giving way to cloud appropriate now, right? And that resonates more with what Christoph was saying, right? Customers are more conscious about where they need to place their workloads, right? It could be on edge, it could be on data center, it could be on cloud. Now, these aspects, right, also increase the complexity, right? And how do you place these workloads? Which workloads? Where do you place it, right? those which are related to AI and inference, what Christoph was mentioning, right? That needs more data gravity and latency sensitive, keep it in the data center, right? And those workloads, which are more like collaboration, for example, or SaaS oriented, can be on the public cloud, right? So it's not the cloud first that's going away. It's making way for cloud appropriate. And that makes it, another point which Christoph was saying, right? It's all hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The workloads is going to remain on edge, data center, not on public cloud. And HP is well positioned to do hybrid by design and not as an afterthought, I would say that.
Okay, good. So, Mani, the real challenge becomes managing hybrid complexity.
Exactly. Right. CIOs need architecture thought towards hybrid by design and not hybrid as an afterthought. With HPE GreenLake, we complete the journey for customer to adopt hybrid cloud strategy, right? And HPE Managed Services extends that hybrid cloud strategy to provide a cloud-like experience or true as a service experience for customer.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually do the heavy lifting of managing the complexity, irrespective of wherever the workloads reside.
More like managing the hybrid cloud strategy rather than
Yes.
magnifying it.
And also providing a cloud-like experience, irrespective of where the workload runs.
Right. So, Nusrat, I think this question is for you. Where are organizations losing control today?
Yeah, so I think Christoph touched upon certain areas where the control is required. But if I have to summarize 3 areas of control deficit, it will be cost control, capacity control, and workload placement. So when it comes to cost, I think everybody understands about the egress cost and how difficult it is to estimate. But many times, some of the other areas, especially for organizations who have already moved to the cloud or they were the first to move to cloud, they are also leveraging some of the additional capabilities of a hyperscaler model, for example, auto-tiering of storage or auto-scaling of instances. Now, when somebody is using this, then predicting the cost and budgeting becomes more difficult. So that's the cost control aspect. Plus the unpredictability of the repricing risk as well is there. Second is capacity. So a lot of times when it comes to designing the capacity, there is over-provisioning there. And when there is over-provisioning, it also actually adds to the cost because then you're not only over-provisioning the extra infrastructure, you are utilizing the data center space, power, cooling, so all that adds. The third is workload placement. So a decade back, when organizations started moving to the cloud and cloud first was the mantra, many workloads moved to the cloud without really going to details in terms of cost, performance, latency, resilience. Yeah. And that is where we are also seeing challenges because there are certain static workloads which are not really requiring the scalability which a cloud model provides, and it doesn't need that scalability, and they are still placed in the cloud, and those are costlier to operate as well.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, these are the 3 control points or the control deficits I would like to just summarize: cost control, capacity control, and workload placement.
What about traditional models? Aren't they keeping up?
So traditional models are definitely not keeping up because the way the traditional budgeting and the investment is planned for the peak demand. And looking at the way the organizations and the businesses are moving, this demand is fluctuating. I think what we need is not a static optimization or a modernization, but a model which can be continuously optimized and aligned as the business trajectory moves along.
Mm-hmm. So I think, Christoph, I just want to understand, right, and also for our viewers and listeners, where does GreenLake fit into this conversation?
Well, as Nusrat was mentioning, right, we need to have a tool to become like a control plane. And this is what GreenLake have been transforming in. Yeah, I think GreenLake was initially really a kind of financial model that we were giving to a customer, but now is becoming a real technology platform, which is able to manage, first of all, multiple environments. So it unify the way we provide visibility to the operation. And so no matter what kind of operation or what kind of system the people are actually using, we can actually propose to them a unified way to observe this environment also. And so observability is also something which is something important there. As we mentioned, people want to automate. So we have also a set of orchestration features that we put into this platform for people to don't waste time into repeating the same action again and again. The system is able to help them to automate and orchestrate the environment, again, a hybrid environment, which is now the new format that everybody is going in. There is also a set of analytics who are also proposed to the business and also to the operation team for them to take the next level of decision. Because again, this is not something for short term. It's not just a technology that I test and then I put it into a box and that's it. It's something we need to evolve, and this evolvement need to also be done based on data. Yeah, so we are also providing through this platform the set of data necessary to operate. We have also, and which is quite important, that there is also a set of movement from billing to really operation platform. As I said, we are no more just giving, okay, this is a $10 per whatever. Now we are really giving a set of information to people for them to collaborate better across that platform. Yeah.
Right. So this is more about how infrastructure is being run rather than being owned.
Yeah, we move from the asset management. I mean, it's not that asset management is not important, right? But this is just now becoming the business as usual, and we need to move to something slightly different. Yeah, we need to talk more about outcome. The business want to know what is the outcome of this platform that they pay for, because now they also see the cost of that platform. They see that actually there is a service coming to them, and they want to see, is this service driving the right outcome? Not like, is this service consuming 10 server or 20 CPU or whatsoever? That's not the interest of the business now. And they want also to make sure that these data are able to make them with a better optimization over the time. Yeah.
Right. So let's simplify this for our audience, Nusrat. What exactly is GreenLake Flex Solutions?
So when you say a GreenLake Flex solution, there are two parts to it. One is GreenLake, which is the control plane which Christophe talked about, a unified control plane which comes with its artifacts of consumption analytics, hybrid observability, and wellness dashboard, sustainability insight center, and stuff like that. Flex solution leverages the artifacts of the capabilities of GreenLake platform, and it is not only a consumption-based offering or IaaS-based offering. It is also providing a new operating model for the customers and help them basically in three areas. It's a three-part value proposition where they can design the right infrastructure solution, they can deploy the workload at the place where the workload makes sense, and continuously manage and optimize via the GreenLake control plane. So when I say design the right infrastructure solution, what it means is the rich enterprise-grade infrastructure that HP has, be it server, storage, networking, and the enterprise-grade services that we have, that is managed services, advisory and professional services, as well as our operation support services, plus the software IPs and the artifacts that we have, plus some of those software integration also with some of our technology partners. We can provide a solution and then design the right solution and offer the cloud-like economics. So that is one part of designing the right infrastructure solution. Second is deploying the workload where it makes sense. So we have options of obviously on-prem. We can do it on the edges. We can give an air-gap solution. We can give a sovereign solution. We have a back-to-back tie-up with the three largest colo providers. And what this means to our customers is that across 30 countries, we can have the same operating model around 600 data centers across the globe. So that is the second point on deploying the workload at the right place. Third, and the most important, which Christophe also alluded to, is managing and optimizing via the GreenLake control plane. And what it means is that for a GreenLake Flex solution, the customer gets a complete set of consumption analytics. So at any point in time, if they want to see how much they are spending, where they are spending, they can do that. They can do a capacity monitoring. So, and they can even set threshold in terms of if the capacity is going above a certain point, they can basically get an alert. And it also comes with a public cloud integration from a cost perspective. So from the consumption analytics today, the customers can connect to say Azure, GCP, and AWS and get the cost at one place. So the overall benefit to the customer is ability to customize the solution and also get a cloud-like economics. So it's not about choosing between customization or cloud economics, but getting the best of both the worlds.
Right. So we often hear this from customers, right? Isn't this just leasing?
So, see, leasing has a play where customers want to preserve their cash. Then obviously they can go for leasing, and it has value there. But what GreenLake Flex solution actually provides is much more than that. It provides an operating model where where we charge the customer based on very defined unit of measures. So, for example, if it is servers, it could be utilization of CPU cores. If it is storage, it can be a per GB cost. So what this helps the customer is that they can start with the day one capacity, and because they are measuring at a granular level on a unit of measure, they can increase the capacity as the business basically grows. Yeah. So that's the misconception that it's a kind of a lease, but it offers something much more than that. And then when it comes to the capacity, there is also the element of support built in. So there is an account support manager who does a capacity monitoring analysis, guides the customer in terms of how the capacity can be planned. There is a element of simulation available as part of the consumption analytics, where customers can simulate what their capacities will be in the future as well.
Mhm.
So when you look at all these value which the GreenLake provides, it is much more than lease. And the last but not least is, see, it also has an element of a buffer capacity. So in a GreenLake construct, we can add 20, 30, 40% of buffer. And this was actually a big benefit for example, during COVID, when there was suddenly a supply chain constraint.
Mhm.
So most of our GreenLake customers who had availed this option of a buffer capacity, they could absorb the shock of the supply chain challenge, where they had that additional capacity available on-prem or wherever their workload was, and they could tap into that additional capacity. So when you look at all these benefits, obviously it helps where the lease helps in terms of preserving cash, because you again don't have to upfront invest. You go on a pay-per-use basis. But then if you look at all those associated value proposition which the GreenLake Flex provides, it is far more than what a lease could do.
Right.
If I can add to this, right, I think also we were talking about lock-in. We are also removing the lease lock-in, because leasing is also a lock.
Mhm.
If you plan to lease for, let's say, 5 years on a certain capacity because you have a plan to consume this full capacity within the 5 years, that's a risk. Because if for whatever reason your project, your technology is changing into this 5 years of time, right? You are locked in because you need to basically pay for this ultimately. So of course you delay the payment, but you need to go through the payment. In GreenLake Flex, this is something different. We project the capacity for the 5 years, but we don't lock the customer on that 5 years of projection capacity. So yes, we do a right sizing on when and where they start, but we are not forcing the customer to end to what is their plan 5 years early into the life cycle. And this is a big difference, and especially when we're talking about, let's say, the AI workload, where the technology is changing so frequently, to have a systematic lock-in, to say, okay, I'm going to have to take this all H100, H200, where we know that there will be a new technology coming anyway in 6 months, in 1 year. Definitely, the customer need to prevent themselves from this lock-in as well.
Yeah, and just to add, because Christoph touched upon refresh, so compared to lease or even traditional purchase, where GreenLake Flex model really helps is also on the refresh cycle. So for example, I'll give you an example. Today, if in a traditional model or lease, customer wants, say, 30 servers, yeah? In a GreenLake Flex, what we'll do is we'll identify what the day one capacity is. Yeah, maybe the day one capacity is only 15 servers. And 3 years down the line, we'll add 5 servers and we reach to 30 in a GreenLake construct. Now, in a traditional model, what will happen? Because the customer has invested in 30 servers today, 3 years down the line, they will have that heavy workload of migrating or refreshing that entire gamut of 30 servers. But in a GreenLake Flex construct, because they have started on the day one capacity, which is the right capacity, they will, after 3 years, will look at only 15 servers to refresh. So the project size reduces almost by 50%. And then the additional 5 servers can be refreshed at a later point in time. So what this means to an IT operating model is during the refresh cycles, they don't have to get into a heavy load migration.
Yeah.
They can reduce that migration workload and at the same time, they can optimize their, I mean, if they're reducing the workload, that means their resources can be leveraged for doing a lot of other things with the business may demand.
Got it. So, Mani,
Yep.
let's talk operations, right? CIOs are concerned about managing complexity. How would you address that?
That's where managed services come in, right? And three things I would like to say. So, cloud-like economics is what he was mentioning, and different set of workloads placed across edge, cloud, and colo, right? With managed services, we complete the journey by providing managed for you experience, right? Which is like a cloud-like operating model across edge to cloud. And customers, those who have experienced cloud, right, they have a certain way of managing services, which is lightweight because cloud provider used to do those heavy lifting for them, right? They were just consuming it. So the same way with adding managed services to the GreenLake model gives you that experience, which is cloud-like operating model, which completes those experience, right? So customer really feels that they're really running in private cloud, which is managed for them. Right, that's point one.
Yep.
And number two, important aspect is, you mentioned about AI, right? We do use agentic AI platform, right, in managed services to deliver services for our customer, right? And that's process centric and people driven, right? We don't leave everything for AI. Not, everything can also be automated in AI. I think we discussed this earlier. So we have an agentic AI platform, which is process centric and people driven, right? That's the second point. And third, we use this platform to deliver observability, right? Which you mentioned. If you remember, Christoph started off this point with AI ops, right? How AI ops can reduce your mean time to resolution or mean time to detection, right? That's where we help, the customers do that, right?
Right. So I think the next question is, so does it mean that customers don't need to scale their teams? And if a customer is listening to this podcast and has to assess 4 to 5 areas to consider managed services, what will be those areas?
Okay, so I would start with this, right? Customers start with managed services to accelerate their technology adoption, right? Especially emerging technologies where they don't have, skills in-house in the organization. They start with managed services. And over a period of time, gradually, if they're building in-house capabilities, they can take on those workload, right? That's the fundamental point on how we operate. And number two, if I wanted to say 3 or 4 areas that what a customer need to look for, right? The first and fundamental on which the whole premise can be built for managed services is configuration management database, right? So how accurate is the CMDB? Right, that's a first and foremost point, right? Because that's going to be the base for everything that what we do. Even if you have to do automation, even if you have to do agentic AI based, operations, you need to have your CIs right and tagged right, validated, and reconciled regularly, right? And industry average, for example, is about 75 to 80%. At HP managed services, we do it 100% always.
So I'm going to stop you for a while. What's CI? Can you just explain to us?
Configuration item.
Okay.
Yeah, CI is a configuration item. So every individual, device and a unit that carries an IP, we call it as an CI, configuration item in CMDB, right? That's the first point. And number two, again, back to AIOps, right? AIOps driven mean time to resolution or detection, right? That's a very important aspect. And our platform is built for doing that, right? That's the second aspect, right? And we also do an correlation of 99.997% today, and customer needs to look at what is their alert to, noise correlation today in their environment, right? And that's where HP can improve. That's second. And three, agentic AI based workflows, right? In our platform, we are building it. We are not there yet, but it's continuously evolving. As Christoph was also mentioning, that it keeps evolving and new things come in, and we keep building use cases. So we have agentic AI based operation runbook that can be done in the platform today, right? For customer. Do you have that? Do you have skills for doing that? Skills for maintaining that? That's the third one. And fourth and most important one is automation and toil reduction, right? So how all this automation helps you to reduce your L1, L2 tickets, right? How much incidents you are doing auto remediation. That's another important factor, right? Which one needs to look at. So 4 things, again, to say automation and toil reduction first, and agentic AI operational runbook second, and AIOps driven resolution for detection and resolution, I would say, as a third point. And the first one is the CMDB health and accuracy ratio, right?
Yep.
That's more important.
Okay. So I think shifting the conversation a little bit, Christoph, this is for you. Right? How does GreenLake Flex Solutions leverage intelligent operations, right, and automation?
The GreenLake Flex actually complete or complement what we just discussed with managers now, right? So again, it's a platform, first of all, and this platform is actually there to give an option for the people who are managing that platform or using that platform to tend to autonomous operation. They need to basically give the potential to the business to get more innovation, with less downtime, and a faster time to resolution. And anything that we can put into the platform to get some AI ops to automate the L1 or L2 tickets to make sure that we can skip some step and get back to resolution faster. So all this basically just like combine to each other. So is a sum of technology and a sum of people and action that they are capable of taking at the right point of time, who are basically bringing this value, which is an autonomous IT operation. And the more we get close to this autonomous IT operation, the better it will be for the business, because it will be very agile and very fast in response to any event, which is, again, the biggest problem today to the CIOs and their team, is to make sure that in any events they can respond quickly and have a simplification of that response. Because if the response is fast but looks complicated to the business, is also not a good thing. And you are going to, again, trigger a set of discussion that nobody want to trigger. They want to focus on their business, on the initiative and the innovation that they give to their customer, more than their internal ping pong between the different teams to try to solve a problem. So that's what we are giving through the platform and through the people that we are actually proposing to our customer to give life to this platform and propose this hybrid cloud solution that they need.
Right. So I think, Nusrat, this question's for you, right? What's the entry point for CIOs who want to explore this?
So first thing for the IT leaders listening to this podcast, I would say will be to identify their data center cost and also identify areas where they can enhance efficiency. And how they can move ahead is we would propose a cloud physics assessment, which is a HP funded assessment. It's a tool which takes just 15 minutes to deploy in the customer environment. And it can quickly start generating reports, and basically it can give a complete list of inventory of all the VMs, the physical servers and the PCI devices across the vCenter environment. And it can also give, it can detect the data stores and the storage arrays across multiple vCenters. And more importantly, it can identify areas where the customers can optimize. So be it idle VMs, over provision VMs, or old snapshots which are not deleted.